This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential Podcast. I'm Molly.
Hi, I'm Pam.
And if you haven't already, we would love it if you would please like and subscribe. And we'd love to hear from you, too. Leave a comment or a suggestion about a case, because we love the What the Feezy cases.
Yes, we do.
Something crazy is always bubbling up here in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast, but it happens everywhere. And this, in fact, is one that comes to us from Alabama. Today's episode is called Cheerleader Kimber Mills Killed at Testosterone-Fueled Alabama Bonfire. This is about 18-year-old Kimber Mills, y'all. Just a beautiful young woman. She was killed after she was shot in the head, and her family had to remove her from life support. It happened at a bonfire in Pinson, Alabama. She was a cheerleader at a school in Cleveland, Alabama, which was not too terribly far away. But this was that place, and I think a lot of people can relate to, you know, as adults, remember when you were a teenager, they want to have some place to go hang out. So in this case, it was beneath the power lines. It, property that was owned by the power company there. That a bonfire, a fight broke out, and this young woman was shot in the head, and it is heartbreaking on every level. But there are more details coming out because, as fate would have it, there was some video of the fight that was happening at the time that she was shot. So we're going to break down what people are talking about, but first want to just talk a little bit about her. I mean, she was such a well-loved, popular, sweet thing.
Yeah, and she was beautiful and 18 years old, looking forward to going to the University of Alabama and studying nursing. And she was like just like the bubbly, and they said spunky. They said one of her sisters said she had spunk. So I'm like, I can see that. And she had a beautiful smile, perfect smile, and a participator. And just, they said, she's the kind of girl that made you believe in goodness. And I mean, like, goodness gracious, walking around and someone says that about you, that's definitely a compliment.
I know. And I think it may have been that desire to help that probably put her in harm's way, according to witnesses.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
I think so. Well, this has just been on our mind this week. It just happened this week, actually. Right now, while we're talking, they are having her funeral right now. It's Sunday, and they had the visitation and her funeral today. And it's just, my heart is just hurt over it, because I'm like, one day you wake up, you go to school, and the next day you're not there. And that more or less is more for the family. You know, they're still trying to go do about their business. But this school right here had a very different reaction and compassion and a response to this happening at their high school than what we've had with August Borden up in Tuscumbia.
I'll say, I mean, it happened Sunday, October 19th. It's taken off life support just a few days later. Here it is, the 26th of October. They're, burying her. God love her family. But hundreds of people, at least 100, turned out at the hospital as they were wheeling her for the procedures, because she was an organ donor, her last act of giving, if you will. So sweet. But you could just see in that video all the kids lining the hall, and her gurney covered in sweet blankets and balloons and stuffed animals, and the outpouring of support from the community. And it is heartbreaking when you see that is a wonderful reaction. It's a normal reaction. Yeah. What I feel like we're seeing with August Borden, it is not a normal reaction. It's huddling up and circling the wagons against the truth, potentially. And if you haven't been following, you can see our playlist on our YouTube channel, and it's basically Justice for August, and it's about the August Borden situation, 15-year-old football player in Tuscumbia at Deschler High School. His parents believe he was essentially assaulted by another player, but the coaches and the administrators are denying that happened and calling it an accident. And they've had authorities from Madison County do an independent investigation who said that that's what they found, that it was, quote unquote, a freak accident. But the family has got an attorney. They have certainly not been they don't encourage violence, but they do want answers. And there are businesses that are rallying around. They've created a reward, I should say, to, encourage people to come forward with pictures or video of it. And in this case, there is video of this fight that happened around the bonfire. And I think there's some discussion over how this fight started, why the young man who's been charged with shooting her even fired in the first place. And I think, this situation, you might see why people are responding like they are. This was a young woman that basically got caught in the crossfire. August, I feel like he deserves this sort of reaction as well, but there must be other motivations at stake. I think money is at stake, and they just don't want to talk about it and admit what happened because it might put an end to what they're doing.
Right. Well, and if they started out with a lie, which I believe they did, you start out with one lie, there's no truth that can come after that unless you go, I'm sorry, I want atonement. That's not right. But chasing, that's a whole different thing. But back to here with Kimber, like I said, perfect smile, pretty hair, little fit body, and excited about life and everything. The folks there at her school, the very next day, it's almost poetic. They gathered around an oak tree, and they're all, pink's her favorite color, so they're all in pink. They're having prayer. They're talking about things. Her family realizes early on that this is not survivable without, it's just her body cannot do that. So they decided to let her body do what it needs to do, keeping in mind that she is an organ donor, and they did. And so she can, be an organ donor. Her heart was given to a 7-year-old. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. And her lungs were a middle-aged lady. And so that is 2 people that we know of. But the honor walk, any honor walk, if you look at that and you realize what somebody's doing and what family's hurting, and you just look at the reverence of the doctors and the nurses and the staff and the friends and family. They had hundreds of people lined at UAB because it's like a dance. They got to get in there and get the organs and get them where they need to go. So I watched it, and I just cried, obviously, thinking about that sweet little girl. But I also cried thinking about the gift she's going to give to 2 other people at least, that their life's going to be better.
I know. And that is, I think, a small comfort, I imagine, to her family.
It is. And then, like, their football team, they were, the guys, they got on these hot pink socks, and they got these big banner, like the football players run through, and it was like LLK, like Love Like Kimber. And they had everything around, and they did a special thing at the 50-yard line. The 50-yard line is painted pink on both sides and stuff. So, I mean, like, this baby girl was loved so much, and they showed it. And see, that's what matters. You can love people, but if you don't show them, how do they know?
I know. I am glad that they showed it, because there are a lot of questions about what happened in this situation as well. And I think her family needs all the support they can get.
Oh, no doubt. And I think she's the youngest of the siblings and stuff. So that's extra too. That's your baby sister and stuff. But this is like over in that Pinson Trustful area up in Birmingham. And like where the Cleveland, there's only like 1,300 people in that community, so it's a small community. So when they get together on these weekend things, much like where I grew up.
At the pit, they call it.
The pit, yep, it's a bonfire. And you get together like we used to go cruise the mall. But I mean, it'd be people from all over.
We cruised the mall. We went to Taco Bell. I think there was a Tasty Freeze we might have stopped at here and there. And then when I was in Fort Walton Beach, there used to be on Okaloosa Island an old rickety roller coaster, like literally the old wooden kind.
How fun.
Yeah. And they just had a chain link fence around it and an open parking lot, but we'd all just hang out in the parking lot. Nobody was trying to get up on that rickety old, it wasn't like Party at the Moon Tower kind of a thing, but it was more like, hey, let's go to the the roller coaster.
Right. Well, if somebody had the idea, they might would have done it, because like when you're out and about doing that in different communities, it's fun. It's what you do. It's what they do. They have music, and one of the videos I saw from the past, they showed Kimber, and she was doing a little line dance to a Cupid Shuffle or something like that. Very different than the other videos we're fixing to talk about. But there was some drinking going on and some partying, and people keep getting it mixed up, saying it was a high school gathering. It was a regular gathering that had high school folks and some folks that are not in high school.
Right. And again, that kind of goes back to like, back when you were in high school, you'd have people that were a little bit older, adults that either graduated or they had, friends or relatives that were still younger and in high school. And that's what it sounds like. There were just young adults mixed in this mix.
Right. And I want to say that because a lot of this, like we we said, this just happened a week ago. A lot of this is getting thrown out there, and narratives are so important, especially to say the right things at the beginning, that people are saying, well, that was a high school thing, and the guy that's accused of shooting Kimber is 27, and they're like, what is he doing there anyway? And et cetera, et cetera. So when we say it the other way, to go, this was an adult event with high schoolers and other people, then it's a little more flexible. And I think that's what we kind of need to keep in mind. The guy's name is Steven Tyler Whitehead.
Yes.
You and I like that name, Steven Tyler.
Right, because it reminds me of Aerosmith.
Yeah.
I assume maybe his parents were fans as well, but who knows? That may have been a coincidence. But, the way the story broke initially, and we're since learning more information, but I think, it went out that she was shot during an altercation at the pit. It was just after midnight, wooded area. It's where the kids like to hang out. There's partying, if you will, going on. And a man, they said, reportedly fired several shots after an argument, and she was essentially caught in the crossfire. And there is video that has surfaced of it. And here's a little bit you can see as we're playing this. But multiple shots can be heard, people running for safety. One of the victims told media in the area that they have parties like that every single weekend, but this was the first time that there had been violence. So I think what we're learning now, because there was also several other people that had been shot. Now, Kimber was the one that was killed, sadly, but the other 3 survived. There was Silas McCay. McCay was hit 10 times, 3 times in the leg, once in the hip, once in the rib cage, twice in the stomach, once each in his finger, and then pelvis and inner thigh. That was it. Once each in his finger, pelvis, and inner thigh. So he survived all this, and there's pictures of him on social media with flowers being sent to him and this, that, and the other. But what you're now finding out is that maybe Silas is the reason there was a fight to begin with.
Yeah, it's kind of changing around a little bit back and forth. That's why we got to stay with the facts. This was
because he was 21 as well.
Right. See, he wasn't a high schooler.
And that was 27-year-old Steven Tyler Whitehead that was there as well. So apparently Silas gets involved because he thinks that Steven has been trying to come on to some girl there at the party.
Yeah, that's what happened. See, this got sent out by social media. Like, here's the party, and there are 40 or 50 people there. A lot of the boys are walking around without shirts on, which that's okay, but it's hot, I guess. But there's drinking going on and, yelling and hooping and hollering. You can hear it on the video, which none of that's wrong or anything. I mean, like, maybe they might not want them drinking on the land that belongs to the Alabama Department of Transportation.
Sure.
That's what
makes sense.
Yeah, that says no trespassing and got barriers and stuff where they're not supposed to be there. But this is something they do. It's a bonfire. But what had happened was, like, there was some talk like that Steven, allegedly, that Steven had come through with some open containers there, let's just say beer, because I think that's what it was, offering it to girls. And they were like, no, they tell you all the time, don't take an open drink from anybody.
Right.
So one girl, let's kind of move him on down the road a little bit. And she's like, I'll take one if it's like, you got it still closed. I don't want to open one.
Right.
So there was that. And then allegedly they said that he was looking for some drugs and that he could basically, I can steal your girl. So this goes back to this little nanny boo-boo type of things that people do amongst each other.
Well, and it just seemed like it was a big show of force at that point. So one girl calls her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, and he was no longer at the pit. So he reached out to McCay and basically said, here's what was happening. You guys need to take care of it. So they surround Steven, which is in line with what people say, or at least the video, what people say happened and what the video shows happened. A man falls to the ground as several people appear to punch him, and a young woman is then seen pulling others away and checking on this guy before you hear the gunshots ring out and people scatter. So Whitehead is charged with 3 counts of attempted murder. He's now out on bond. He's a member of the Alabama National Guard. So we're learning more about these folks that are involved. And, according to McCay, who I think a lot of people felt like was a hero at the time and were really trying to help him, and who's to say he wasn't a hero? But he said, quote unquote, my ex-girlfriend came up to me at the party and said they were trying to do stuff to this girl named Kimber. Me and my buddy found him and started fighting him. I grabbed him, had him on the ground, and my buddy pulled me off. That's when he pulled his gun out and started shooting, end quote.
Yeah, that's his quote to Channel 6 up in Birmingham. But what had happened, like with Steven, he got there, and I think he came in, about like a skunk at a picnic. I don't know why, but he was, like I said, offering the beers and this, that, and the other, being a little bit, I guess, annoying. And he'd like put his hands on a girl's hips or waist or something, and I don't think she liked it. But anyway, all of a sudden, I guess that Silas had been, asked to go fix this or what have you, or deal with it. So you can see Steven walking away with his hands kind of up, and he's got something in his hand, and looking at it, it looks like a beer maybe or something, but he's walking toward his car. So the bunch over here that have assigned, he's doing something nefarious, said he's going back to his car. They know he's been in the military before, going back to his car to get his AR because he's going to come back and kill all of us, is what they were saying that they thought. Well, you can see that Silas is a fit big boy, and he's like several of them coming through the crowd, and you can see it. You see them coming for him. Steven is walking away. He is walking away. And all of a sudden, in the fracas, you see now that Steven's on the ground. And so he picks him up like wrestler style, like bam, you throw people on their back. It's like a suplex. And so then all the fracas is going on. They're screaming and carrying on. And there's those wailing type of punches, that you see. And it's a hot mess, but you can't tell everything about it. But you can see at some point, you can see a small figure, which is Kimber. You can see her walking up in there, and it looks like she's trying with her little self. I mean, she's small. Her little self trying to go basically stop or what have you. There are some people that have said that they think they saw Kimber hitting him and doing a soccer kick to him, but I don't see that, and that doesn't seem like anything consistent with her personality or what she would be doing. Plus, I mean, she's a girl. You don't jump in the middle of men, bigger than football players. I'm talking about throwing haymakers and kicking and hitting and all kind of stuff. So you see Steven, cowering down like that, pulling himself in, and then you just hear the pow, 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 pow. And I'm trying to see what I can see there, and it looks to like where Kimber just fell like down to the ground.
And that's the murder charge that he's facing is for her death, and then the 3 attempted for the other 3.
Right, because she passed away. And that whole thing there, it's just like it just got out of control because of, like we said, testosterone, or he said, she said, or you did this, or what. And it's dark, and it's, late. They're tired. So everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
I know, but I felt like you did when I heard about that. I've seen fights break out when I was a kid and at school and occasionally outside of school, but I just never felt the need to get involved. Now, did I yell from the sidelines? Yeah, maybe. Like, hey, get off them, whatever. But I don't know. My instinct was, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get up in the middle of it. It sounds like she felt safe enough and comfortable enough because she probably knew most of them and thought, well, maybe I can stop this. But I agree with you. I mean, obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and nobody thought he was armed, most likely, but that is such a tragedy.
Right. Well, she seems to be the only one helping him because everybody else is beating him. So, she is a cheerleader. She is with that, happy esprit de corps. This is, hey, whatever, So it might have just been her personality or just what she did. Some people think that they can get in the middle of a fracas, a brouhaha, or Donnybrook fracas, whatever's going on. And I think that's probably what went extra wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's take a quick second to thank our advertiser, Zarzar Law. Joe Zarzar, personal injury attorney here in the Pensacola area, but he is representing more than a few folks from Alabama. We talk about his cases pretty regularly here on Gulf Coast Confidential. He's a voice for the voiceless and advocates for victims who've been hurt through no fault of their own. And if you have been hurt through no fault of your own, then we would recommend that you give Joe Zarzar a call. He's somebody that you can talk to. You can talk to his staff. They can vet your case and tell you what your next steps are. Because I feel like a lot of times when people have been injured, whether it's medical malpractice, maybe it's a car accident, maybe there's something other than that happened, a slip and fall. You just want to know, what are my next steps? What are my options? How do I get answers from my insurance company? How do I talk to these folks who are responsible for the property? Whatever the case may be, you need somebody who can fight for you and get those answers. And I think he and his legal team will help you do that.
He's definitely on it. He's always on something. But yeah, it's interesting. All his cases are interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because nothing is ever simple. And I think that's what we're seeing in this case. I mean, sometimes it is simple and you can have a quick resolution, but a lot of times people either don't know what all happened or maybe they're not going to be completely honest up front about what their role was in a situation. And I think what's happening in this case is that information is just still continuing to come out.
Right.
And if this guy did fire randomly because he was scared for his life, I mean, I don't agree with the fact that he had a gun at a bonfire party. But at the same time, maybe he had a reason for carrying it there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Alabama, a lot of our guys and girls carry, because you can and stuff. And I don't necessarily like doing that, but you got like 3 or 4 people on one person out there, and you're getting thrown to the ground, and there's no way out for you, and you're pulling in like this. And there's a guy, his name is Wesley Bullard, I believe. I was looking at some of the things he said, and he said I probably was the most sober one there, meaning that he was looking at stuff, and he had some things that he was saying about that. Because when this first started, these videos didn't come out till a few days ago. And that's because of these cell phones. We can't buy a video up at Tuscumbia, but we got gazooks down here and just looking at them. So we have to be careful what we're looking at, and we have to be careful what we say about things. It's got like a senseless, unimaginable event going on. You got a bunch of hotheads, half dressed. Sometimes people are peacocking for the opposite sex, things going on like that. And you got these sweet little girls over here, they're little cheerleaders and taking selfies and doing the things that they want to do. And then when a gun comes out and you're afraid for your life. So we don't know. We really don't know. And it's kind of hard. And I think it's really confusing that we're like, he's a hero. He's not a hero. He was scared. He's not scared. So this is where our legal system comes in.
Right.
So we have to play that out.
Filtering through the facts.
Right. So, I mean, because you see it one way, I see it another way. But definitely on the internet, looking at things, we do not need to get in that soup of just assuming things and assigning terrible things to people like they're doing horrible things on purpose. Now, if people are, then that is what it is. But just I can't even believe, in 1 week, definitely Kimber's absence is definitely felt at school, at the football game. And then now we've got Steven Tyler Whitehead. His whole life's changed too. And so have the other 3 people that got shot. Silas, Levi, and I think the other 20-year-old girl's name is Raylan. We hadn't heard a lot about her because she got taken to the hospital by private vehicle.
Interesting. So I'm so glad that there was no one else that died.
Yeah. And I think that some people are finding, like we had the TikToks up at Tuscumbia. I think Silas had put out a TikTok, you can't keep this down, it was a black ninja, the ninja thing, with the black cape and stuff. So people are making something about that. And
well, I did notice that people are like, you're not as innocent as you claim to be. I saw some posts along those lines.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what's going on? What are we doing? We've got an exercise in craziness we're doing up in Tuscumbia. And here, I remember telling you, I'm so proud of how everybody's been acting. And I said that a day too soon.
I know. Well, hopefully, at least it's going to happen. If it's going to blow up and be controversial and ugly, hopefully they will at least wait until after her funeral, which it seems like it's barely going to make it past that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Before people start hammering on some of these other points.
Right. Or victim blaming. And there's going to be some survivor's guilt and some emotional shrapnel still floating around. These are just, in my opinion, when you're 17 and 18, you're still young. You haven't processed stuff like this yet. You don't know where to go with it. And everything seems overwhelming. So they do have grief counselors at their school, and the community. I'm proud of the community as a whole.
Absolutely, because you're right. It's in stark comparison to how Tuscumbia and Deschler High School folks have handled it. It's an entirely different situation.
Yeah, and if there's anything that we can do to help, Kimber's family, or for to tell the truth about this is what we want, things to be factual.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you're right. I mean, until people step forward and talk about what they know and what the situation really was, then people are just left to guess and wonder. And people are hurting. They're upset. She was well loved. It shouldn't have happened. And I think that it's natural to want to find somebody to blame. And certainly the guy who shot the gun is the easiest person to do that. He is facing a murder charge and 3 attempted murder charges. But when you start diving in and looking at the circumstances, did he intend to shoot her in the head? Was he really trying to just show up and shoot people? Or was he really scared for his life? Is this going to be a case of stand your ground, self-defense?
Yeah. Or did he just walk over there trying to be a big old peacock, you know? And like that ain't happened 100 times a day every weekend in Alabama,
right?
You know, in Florida, in every state in the world.
Well, and you think about these other boys that just jumped on him. I mean, you know, if you have a bunch of kids and a bunch of hormones all in the same place with a bunch of potentially, you know, behavior altering substances, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever, if people are buzzed, they're partying, they're hormonal, you know, did they just jump this guy because it felt good? Because they just wanted to feel what it like to crack him, you know, because, well, you're going after one of our women folk. We're not going to stand for it. But, you know, I mean, maybe he was inappropriate. Maybe he did deserve to have a talking to. But it does seem to me like it was a lot of peacocking going around all the way around.
Right. And if you're just peacocking or whatever it is, or even if you said something, you don't deserve to get, you know, shot at either or beat down. And Kimber sure didn't deserve that for just being there. So we just watching through all this, just keep in mind, this was a little girl that liked doing cartwheels and cheering for her high school football team.
Right. And she should be thinking about college and her next steps in her life and not her family putting her in the ground. Well, it was interesting, I think, that, you know, that where it happened was property owned by the Alabama Department of Transportation. And they sent a statement to the media as well saying, quote, "We offer our sincerest sympathies to the victims and their families following that tragedy. For several years, this property has been marked with no trespassing signs, concrete barriers, and a fence, and any access that has been occurring is unlawful and done in a way that skirts these barriers." So they said they're cooperating with the investigation. I think that's also their way of saying, hey, we're not responsible here. If there's anybody thinking about a civil suit for us creating an environment for this to happen, we didn't condone it. We've taken every effort we can not to. But I did think it's interesting that some kids were saying, well, it happens every weekend. So, you know, reasonably, you can only do so much. But I thought that was an interesting response. But at least they did respond. And they did acknowledge that that happened.
And that's so helpful for people to don't act like it didn't happen. And even if you're wrong, I mean, say you're wrong. You know, I mean, we have to speak up for justice or else we just keep going in a circle. But I was proud of them for speaking up also. Yes,
and proud of that sweet girl for donating her organs. Now a 7-year-old baby girl is going to have a new lease on life with her new heart and the other organs that went to the other victims as well, and or, you know, medical victims, I should say. But at any rate, I think that's the one little bit of a silver lining. But this is just the beginning of a long grieving process for her friends and family, and I am sorry for that.
Yeah, sweet little girl.
All right, we'll continue to follow Steven's case and see where that goes and you know, what happens with his trial. Anything else you think would be important to add?
I just think just do the right thing, speak up for justice. And I mean, like, we can show each other love and compassion as easily as we can, like, pick each other apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And at least this young man did turn himself in. He didn't try to run or deny what happened. So hopefully folks will have a chance to get the truth and they can move on and heal. Well, thank you so much, Pam. And thank you for joining us on this latest episode of Gulf Coast Confidential. That is it for cheerleader Kimber Mills, killed at testosterone-fueled Alabama bonfire. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. You can check out more of our episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, or don't forget to watch on our Gulf Coast YouTube channel and like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.